Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready?
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Hope you're having a good day where you are. I know it's a Monday, so for a lot of people, Mondays are a bitch. Especially after weekend. And anyway, I just still hope everything's going okay with you. So I have a couple of videos. This first one comes from I Hit Girls. And apparently Musk is officially leaving the Trump administration. He's had enough of the attacks from the left wing, and his Tesla company is in what they call red alert. So let's go to the video here and hear this talked about here on that, and we'll come back and discuss it.
Sound the sirens and get a huge box of tissues because there is going to be some boodle baby crying in Washington, D.C. Per the Washington Post put up this headline, the 5 things emails are going by the wayside as Musk readies his exit. So Elon Musk is readying his exit from Washington, fundamentally because his Tesla brand is in the tank. Sales are plummeting. The brand is absolutely toxic. The stock is tanking. And furthermore, I think his job is done. He bought Donald Trump for access, $300 million. He steamrolls into all of these government offices, destroys all of the evidence against him, kills all of the investigations into him, rewards himself contracts, and now he thinks he's going to just jump from the public sector back to the private sector and that nobody is going to remember it. And let's put up the next one. Doge. Let's talk about Doge. Seth Abramson says Elon Musk has cut somewhere between 0% and 3% of what he promised, and most of what was cut was not waste or fraud or abuse, but simply expenditures Mr. Musk did not personally favor for partisan reasons, and I think for personal reasons. And Seth goes on to say, Doge is the biggest program failure in the history of American government. Basically, he has just completely chiseled the fundamental foundation of our government and left us so vulnerable to economic attack, espionage attack, psychological warfare, and the military is basically in shambles with all of this huge Pete Hegseth shit show. Okay, next up. This is a very disturbing headline from Rolling Stone. Let's put this up. A new study models the impact of the implosion of the U.S.-funded disease treatment and prevention in the developing world and suggests that Elon Musk and Marco Rubio will go down as among history's greatest monsters if funding and effective administrations are not restored. And the headline says, count the dead by the millions. A new study projects Trump cuts to global health aid will kill millions. Abortions will also soar. So Marco Rubio sold his soul to Donald Trump. For what reasons? I don't know. I don't know if he thinks he's going to be president one day. I don't know if he thinks people actually like him. But he also is the first to go to Twitter or to Instagram or Facebook and talk about his faith. And he's going to go down in history paired with Elon Musk as a monster, as a killer. All of these guys did all of this stuff for sport. They took out all of these experts, people that were devoted their lives, decades in academia, in research to try to heal cancers and all sorts of diseases and help the poorest people on earth. And think about that. The richest man in the world is taking away healthcare from the poorest people on earth. And Marco Rubio, who claims to be this big Christian, is his co-pilot in this horrific venture. It cannot be overstated how diabolical the federal government of the United States of America has become. There's so much to cover all of the time, but these people are evil, cruel, nasty, and corrupt. Okay, next up, we have a headline about Tesla. Tesla is facing a quote, code red. Financial experts warn clients Tesla is teetering at edge of calamity. And here's an excerpt from this article. Tesla is Musk and Musk is Tesla. And anyone that thinks the brand damage Musk has inflicted is not a real thing, spend some time speaking to car buyers in the US, Europe, and Asia. You will think differently after those discussions. The Tesla stock has lost about 44% of its value this year. Both Bloomberg and Ives reported that the contributing factor to the sales decline is from, quote, consumer backlash against Musk. And think about it like this, you guys. Everybody that partners up with Trump ends up bankrupt and destroyed. Look at the MyPillow guy. Look at Rudy Giuliani. He never, ever benefits anybody else's career. They all end up completely destroyed. And Elon Musk, he is, I think, a smoke and mirrors guy. I think once they finally do the autopsy on Tesla, there are rumors out there that he's cooked the books on what the net worth is. And he's not an innovator. He has been able to get money, get a position, and he does all this self-promotion. And I think the U.S. government and certain agencies were starting to hone in on him. And he knew, and he said it during the campaign, if Trump doesn't win, I will probably go to prison. Why would you say that? Think about that. Why would somebody say such a thing on camera? And it tells me that what we don't know is far worse than what we do know. And what we do know about Elon Musk is downright horrific. Here's another headline. Musk wants to leave politics because he's tired of, quote, attacks from the left, report says. So here's what I have to say about this. And MAGA has a huge problem with this. Politics is a blood sport. Don't get in it if you're thin-skinned and you're a titty baby, because you will get your feelings hurt. Every day, Pumps and I get behind these microphones. People say all sorts of crazy shit about us. I don't care. Pumps doesn't care because we have thick skin, and I wouldn't come if I was a really sensitive person. I wouldn't come sit here all day, so I'd be in a perpetual state of victimhood. But isn't the perpetual state of victimhood a prerequisite for being in MAGA? These people always claim that they're persecuted. Religion's under attack. Donald Trump is under attack. He's the most investigated person in history. Meanwhile, the religious MAGA people use their religion to weaponize against marginalized people. And Trump is just the biggest criminal on the planet. And he's also incompetent, and he thinks he's so smart, and he isn't. He just has charisma for dumb people like the Riz that this man has. And it's been a con, and it's a sham, and history is not going to be kind to him. And all of these MAGA people have been so short-sighted. Trump is 78 years old. He's quacking like a duck. He's already a lame duck president. Trump is not going to reign forever. It's simply not going to happen. And that he's leaving all of this collateral damage, all of this wreckage. And there's going to be so many Americans that are like, oh yeah, he was crazy. But they probably voted for him 3 times. And I want to remind Musk, and I want to remind MAGA, and I want to remind all of you, the reason that Musk is going to be doubled over, crying, probably losing his company, and that his brand is damaged forever is because of this. Here it is. After they won, at the inauguration, He had been building this up. He had been holding it up forever. And he does 2 Heil Hitlers. He does it once, and then he turns around to the other crowd and he does it again to make sure everybody knows. And think about that. Think about how that was built up for so long. This is an apartheid South Africa guy that comes over here to the United States of America, gets subsidies, and he's a taxpayer-funded billionaire, wants to take away Social Security, calls it an entitlement. When these hardworking Americans entered a contract with the government, they take your Social Security out, they keep it for you, you get it back when you're older. He calls it a Ponzi scheme. Yet he is the biggest Ponzi schemer this country has ever seen. The only one that is even worse than him is Donald Trump. These people are evil. These people are corrupt. These people are diabolical. And the reason we can't have nice things is not because of the LGBTQ plus community. It's not because of immigrants. It's because of white men like them. And they are telling the rubes and they're telling rural America, this is who you should hate. And they just jump right on into it and feast for days. And in the interim, the United States of America is getting destroyed. The only people that are happy about this, Russia, China, and so on. All right, please subscribe and we'll see you all later.
I know everybody, wants to kind of put Trump out there as the number one reason why Musk is having all these problems. But, I still say that Musk himself was a terrible fucking CEO for Tesla. Okay? And certainly him going out there doing those Sea Heils didn't help his image at all. Okay, because I think that's the spark that lit the fire that that's bringing his company down. But it is odd, but not unsurprising, that yet Musk will be yet another person who's either going to go bankrupt or in prison or both. After having associated with Donald Trump. And I'm like, okay, here's another one. I mean, how many more people have to fucking go through this before they understand that Trump is bad fucking news? You don't want to hit your wagon onto that falling star, people, okay? He's bad luck, bad news. I mean, Christ, you could shatter 50 fucking mirrors in your life and still have better luck than this, okay? He's terrible. Trump is terrible. But at the same time, like I said, Musk brought a lot of this on himself, especially how he handled Doge. Okay, unfortunately, Doge will still exist even if Musk is not in there running it. Okay, they'll find some other jackass here to run it. Okay, but you're going to see, more of the same, I would imagine, from somebody else maybe. But what Musk started was destined to bring him down. I mean, I can't imagine how anybody thought that anything good was going to come out of him being responsible for making savings and stuff like that. I just didn't see it, and I imagine a lot of other people didn't see it. I mean, how is cutting Social Security, Medicare, and all these safety net programs, how are all these things going to help the economy when you go after people's livelihoods? All right, you're upsetting the balance of things. Okay, I mean, yes, let's just be honest. The balance of things has never been great in this country for a long time. Okay, we've had a lot of presidents, Democrat presidents too, but we also had a lot of Republicans in leadership positions in the states who've muddled things quite a bit. And so we've always ended up being the people struggling all the time to keep what's ours. And the fact that we really couldn't stop a lot of the corruption from getting to where it is today, basically was saying, well, at some point down the road, and we're going to have a country and a government that's going to just prey on the American citizens for everything. They're just going to go after them for everything that they have, everything that they claim entitlement, okay, which is a nice little comfy word to use to try to obscure what they're really going after here. To go after that and take away from people, you know, it's sad that now we have that kind of a government now. And how long that lasts depends on us, depends on the good people in our government to do what's right. You know, I said yesterday that this year will be about destroying America, and next year will be all about impeaching Trump. Hopefully. But I'd hate to see this happen only after America is really destroyed. I mean, because, you know, we could impeach him now. I mean, he's already done enough as far as doing illegal stuff to earn those articles of impeachment. Here, sorry, here, this damn table. Smokey, stop pushing it. All right. Yeah, he's certainly earned enough to warrant articles being thrown at him now. I don't care if it's less than 100 days. And I mean, if you've done wrong, you've done wrong. I mean, look, if I get a brand new car and I get a brand new license and I'm the first time driver and the first day I go out there, I start speeding and stuff, do you think the cops say, oh, well, let him speed because, hey, it's his first day as a driver? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to come and get your ass. Okay? Because, hey, that's the way we function here. If you cross the line, you're going to get in trouble. Trump crossed the line early on in this presidency, and he ought to get in trouble for it. We shouldn't have to wait, you know, for months and months and months and let the country sink further into hell, okay, before we decide, you know, or somebody decides, okay, it's time. All right? And like I said, it's really up to the Republicans, okay, to start this ball, really, because if the Democrats do it, the way the country's polarized right now, people would take it the wrong way, thinking, oh, Democrats are just going a hit job on Trump. But if the Republicans do it, how can they argue against it? Okay, how can they criticize it if their own people are doing this? Okay, so really, we need to put pressure on Republicans to do the right thing by filing these articles of impeachment against the president. Okay, yes, I know Marjorie Taylor Greene never will, so forget her. But go to the other people, you know. Ignore Boebert. There's others. There's got to be some Republicans there that can listen and understand the plight that's happening in this country and do the right thing. Because that's what we basically want at the end of the day, is we just want somebody in our government to do what we've sent them there to do. Okay? And hell, the numbers support, you know, the majority of this country are not happy with him and probably don't want to see Trump back stay in the office for the rest of his term. They certainly don't want that. So now is the time, really. Now's to seize the moment, you know, and go after him. But I'm sure that after Musk is gone and cleans out his desk, Trump will find somebody else to put in his position to, what can I say, be a lightning rod for the next 3 months or something. You know, I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen, who's going to fill that vacuum, but I doubt there's any people that are like, oh, I can get that job. Nobody's going to want that job after what they've seen go on there, okay? I'm sorry, but, you know, I don't think there's any line of people out there hoping to get a job at Doge. Okay, let's go to a commercial break, and then we'll be right back, okay?
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
As some of you may or may not know, sadly, Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88 years old. And I just want to say that him dying the day after Easter and spending some of his final words and moments advocating for the less fortunate and vulnerable of the world is so beautiful. But on the other hand, he had to spend some of his final moments and words with J.D. Vance. And that's a tragedy. Now, I'm no Catholic, but if I was pretending to be Catholic like J.D. Vance is, I would take this as a really big sign, wouldn't you? Like, it was reported that the Pope initially refused to meet with you, and then he changed his mind. And in a Hail Mary attempt, no pun intended, decided to use his final breaths to teach you to be a human being and have empathy. That's crazy. And notoriously, Catholics suffer from something called Catholic guilt. And if I was you and I whacked the Pope with my horrific morals and ideals, I would kind of change my ways, wouldn't you think? That's just me. Like, I would seriously and honestly reevaluate myself after something like this. Now, J.D. Vance put out a statement saying, "I just learned of the passing of Pope Francis. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was happy to see him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill." He was obviously very ill. It had nothing to do with me, I swear. It's not funny. But don't worry, JD. There are millions of us out there that already thought you were the Antichrist. So something like this, right? This just put the nail in the coffin, literally. And I'm no public relations expert, but the Pope dying just a mere hours after meeting you has to be the ultimate PR crisis. Like, he didn't even hang on for just a couple of days thinking to himself, you know what, this could look really bad for JD. But given how opinionated and vocal Pope Francis has been against the Trump administration, he had to have said to himself, you know what, this is the perfect time to let go. And with that, I just want to say thank you, Pope Francis. You used your time on this earth to try to teach us to have empathy and compassion for all human beings around the world. During your time on this earth, you tried to bring Catholicism into the modern world with your progressive views. And in your death showed to us how the Trump administration is truly the work of Satan. May your memory be forever eternal. Anyways, bye.
Burning, burning, my whole body's burning, burning. Blue ocean is falling, falling, is falling.
I can't get hard, not even with the blue pills. Will the salt trick work for me? All right, pay attention. If you're over 35 and not as firm as you should be, or if you're popping the champagne a little too early, I highly recommend the salt trick. In just 20 seconds, you can prepare this drink, and your anaconda will stand tall for hours, almost immediately. This homemade salt tonic has been used for years by Brahmin bull breeders in India to help them stay firm and mate with up to 20 females at once. But a few years ago, this trick fell into the hands of the adult film industry, and since then, this little secret has been used by adult actors instead of the little blue pill. That's because it works in just minutes, flushing out flaccid toxins from your body that make your buddy shrink and fail when it matters most. It may sound crazy, but this drink is 6 times more powerful than any pill from the pharmacy, and because it's natural, it has no side effects. And if you haven't heard about it yet, it's the company behind the little blue pill, starting with P, that censors anyone who talks about this cheap, homemade solution. That way, they continue raking in billions every year from the suffering of millions of men just like you. But I'm putting an end to that right now. I'm releasing the short video that shows how to prepare and use the salt trick. Back then, this video was sold for $47, or they would have taken it down immediately. But so you can start the year off right. I'm leaving this video free for the next 3 hours. In the video, it shows step by step how to prepare this 20-second trick today and leave your wife with limp legs tonight. Just click the button that's appearing somewhere in this video to watch. If a page opens, it means the video is is still available, and this might be your only chance to toss the little blue pill in the trash and learn how to make this homemade, safe recipe that's 6 times more powerful than the pharmacy pill. But I should warn you, this video contains some pretty hot scenes, and it also shows an African green tonic used by tribes in North Africa to grow their tool to the point of outgrowing all their underwear. Do not use if you're already too big or satisfied with your size. And also how to eliminate the flaccid toxins that are sabotaging your hardness and shrinking your little guy like a turtle. Watch with headphones on. As I mentioned, the video is uncensored and shows exactly how this trick works to make your buddy rock hard. So click the link below and watch while it's still available.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Cord smoke. That's the battery charger. No. Oh, welcome back, everybody. Okay, I have another video. This is from a site called the Black Africa Diary, and this is a video about something that happened that I don't think anybody even knew happened here, because we're so focused on Trump and Musk and those girls that went into space there and their flying dildo. I don't know what everybody's been talking about everything else, but this was an impactful story here that happened in response, I think, in large part, to Trump's issue with tariffs. I mean, not tariffs, but with visas for people coming into this country. So let's go to this video here. It's about 20 minutes long. And I know the narrator is I think is an AI voice, so it's going to be a little bit annoying listening, but I want you to watch this video here and hear what's happened here in Africa, Namibia, Africa, I guess is the country there. So let's go to that.
Namibia's new and first female president has made history against the United States now, and it has Donald Trump on the edge. He slammed the doors on Africans. For years, the United States humiliated African citizens with endless visa delays, denials, and disrespect, all while enjoying VIP access to the continent, with no visa required. Americans could fly into African countries like they owned the skies. No questions, no queues, no shame. But that era is ending, and Namibia just made it official. Under President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, the message is clear. If Africans need a visa to enter America, then Americans need a visa to enter Africa. No exceptions. No hypocrisy. However, Trump hasn't taken the new policy seriously until now. This week, over 500 American nationals were ordered to leave Namibia immediately for violating the country's new visa regulations. They didn't apply. They didn't respect the law. And Namibia isn't here to babysit U.S. tourists. But here's the question. What exactly did these Americans do wrong? What violations pushed Namibia to take this unprecedented step? And will Namibia deport them if they did not leave on their will? Let's find out. It's official. Namibia has flipped the immigration policy. No longer will American citizens stroll into Namibia visa-free while African travelers to the United States face humiliating rejections, months-long delays, and dehumanizing interviews. Starting April 1, 2025, Namibia has declared that if Africans need visas to enter the United States, then Americans will now need visas to enter Namibia. No more free passes. No more imperial courtesy. The announcement, made by Namibia's bold new leadership under President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, marks a historic shift in African diplomacy. It's not a reaction. It's a statement, one that echoes across the continent that Africa will no longer bow to double standards. Previously, Namibia had been among the many African nations that allowed American travelers in without visa requirements, a diplomatic courtesy the U.S. never reciprocated. It was too arrogant to understand that Namibia was doing it as a favor, not because it wanted American tourists. Being more arrogant, America ensured Africans and Namibians were treated unfairly, so they would know they were less important. For decades, Namibian citizens were forced to endure layers of red tape just to visit America. Meanwhile, Americans could mine diamonds, run safari lodges, or conduct business in Namibia with barely a stamp on their passport. That double standard has now expired. The new Namibian policy introduces a visa-on-arrival system for U.S. citizens, requiring them to pay roughly $90 at entry points. But even more importantly, the government is conducting a sweeping crackdown on Americans already living in the country illegally or without proper documentation. As of April, over 500 American nationals have been identified and ordered to leave for violating visa procedures or overstaying their permitted time. And they are not just tourists. Many of these individuals were reportedly involved in Namibia's mining and extraction sectors, extracting uranium, diamonds, copper, and rare earth metals without valid work permits or proper immigration clearances. For years, they operated under the radar. Now, the radar is locked on. Immigration officials have already begun serving deportation notices. Law enforcement has been brought in to ensure the process is carried out in full compliance with Namibian law, but with no compromise on sovereignty. It's a new era of discipline, where even Westerners will no longer be shielded by their passports. That's because President Nandine Ndaitwah made it crystal clear that this is not an act of hostility. It is an act of fairness. If our people need visas to go to Washington, then your people will need visas to come to Windhoek, she declared. It wasn't said in anger, it was said in dignity. And to make her vision even clearer, the president announced a complementary policy that will go down in history. Namibia will be making the country visa-free for all African nations. That's right. While Americans must now apply for permission, Africans are being welcomed freely. Because Africa isn't the problem, Africa is the solution. This bold move is part of a broader Pan-African vision to promote unity, intra-African travel, and trade. It's about turning Africa from a fragmented continent of 54 checkpoints into a borderless home where African passports matter, where no African is treated like an outsider in Africa. Globally, the response has been split. Pan-African activists and African citizens are applauding Namibia, calling it the long-overdue start of reciprocity and resistance. But in Washington and certain European capitals, diplomats are quietly panicking. Because if Namibia can do this, who's next? As Namibia asserts its sovereignty, a bigger question looms. Is this the beginning of Africa rewriting the rules of international respect? Will other African nations finally start demanding reciprocity from the West? Or will this act trigger backlash and economic threats from countries used to unchecked privilege? Either way, the message is loud and irreversible. Africa is no longer begging. Africa is building boundaries, and Namibia is leading the charge. But why did Namibia target the U.S. first? Well, because enough was enough. For decades, the United States has treated African travelers like criminals in waiting. A Namibian entrepreneur applying for a U.S. visa faces background checks, interrogations, proof of funds, and a near 50% chance of being rejected, not because of criminality, but because of nationality. Entire families have been denied access to the U.S. for weddings, funerals, conferences, or even life-saving treatment, all while American tourists flew into Africa visa-free, as if colonial entitlement was still the global default. Namibia decided to make an example, and America was the perfect one. Why? Because no other country has benefited more from Africa's generosity while offering so little in return. America has operated diamond mines in Namibia. Its mining giants have extracted uranium for decades. Its corporations dominate tech, telecom, and agriculture partnerships. And its citizens? Many live in Namibia without even a visa. They blend into the wealthy enclaves of Windhoek or operate tourist businesses in Etosha, all while Namibians struggle just to secure an entry stamp into the United States Embassy in Pretoria. This imbalance wasn't just visible, it was insulting. When President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah stepped into power as Namibia's first female president, she made it clear, Namibia would no longer be a playground for unequal diplomacy. Her administration reviewed all visa agreements, and what they discovered was shocking. That was that American citizens had more access to Namibia than Namibians had to anywhere in the West. And yet, those Americans weren't even complying with immigration rules. The 500 Americans ordered to leave Namibia weren't just tourists overstaying their visas. Many had entered without any visa at all, exploiting the old loophole of visa-free entry and the lax oversight from previous governments. Some were working illegally. Others were involved in resource extraction, unlicensed business operations, or shady missionary activity with no accountability to local law. And here is something shocking. When these individuals were asked to retroactively apply for proper work or residency visas, they were denied. Not because Namibia was punishing them, but because they failed to qualify under Namibian immigration standards. That's when the president stepped in. She ordered immediate deportation proceedings, sending shockwaves across diplomatic channels. Yes, the same country which is deporting people from its country will now see its citizens being deported. Embassies scrambled, lobbyists panicked. U.S. officials asked for leniency. But Namibia refused to flinch. This wasn't about individuals anymore, it was about dignity. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. Namibia wasn't just targeting Americans to make a scene. It was calling out hypocrisy. The United States demands full compliance with its immigration laws, and deportations are standard procedure for undocumented immigrants. But when Namibia applies the same rules to Americans, suddenly it's seen as controversial? That double standard is exactly what Namibia is tearing down. And here's where it gets deeper. Unlike many African countries that fear Western backlash, Namibia stood firm. It didn't bow to diplomatic pressure. It didn't apologize. It reminded the world of something simple and unshakable, that reciprocity is not revenge. It's respect. If an American cannot walk into Russia, China, or even Brazil without a visa, then why should Africa, the most exploited continent in modern history, offer open arms to those who won't do the same for its people? Namibia's decision wasn't emotional. It was strategic. It sent a message to every embassy, consulate, and government across the globe that the old days are over. Africa will no longer be your free vacation. Africa will no longer welcome your unchecked privilege. Africa is no longer your open gate unless you open yours. And America just became the first to feel what that means. The moment Namibia made its move, the West panicked. Embassies in Windhoek became active with urgent memos. She was fighting for sovereignty, the kind Africa was denied for over a century under colonialism and now, under diplomatic hypocrisy. And if the West thought they could scare Namibia into retreating, they clearly didn't know who they were dealing with. Namibian officials reminded the world that every nation has the right to enforce its own borders, something the U.S. does daily with full aggression. And yet, when Namibia did the same, the West called it hostile. That contradiction is the very heart of this policy change. Why is it acceptable for the United States to detain African students at airports, delay visas for months, and fingerprint applicants in embassies, while Americans walk through African borders with no questions asked? Namibia had an answer: no more. And that answer didn't just shake the US, it shook Europe too. Germany, a former colonial ruler of Namibia, reportedly reached out to assess whether the visa policy could extend to EU citizens. They were told, reciprocity is our foreign policy. If Germany's citizens enjoy open access here, Namibians expect the same in Berlin. Now, after Trump has been humiliated, how will the U.S. retaliate? The headlines out of Windhoek were sharp. Namibia to deport 500 Americans. U.S. nationals ordered to leave. Reciprocity demanded. And behind those headlines, an uncomfortable reality settled into the U.S. diplomatic machine. For the first time, an African country wasn't asking. It was telling. And Washington didn't like that one bit. Privately, U.S. State Department officials are scrambling. The tourism angle? They can survive that. Diplomatic friction? Manageable. But the symbolism? That's nuclear. Namibia just set a precedent. A very dangerous one for the global status quo. If one African country can make Americans stand in line at the immigration counter like everyone else, what happens when the rest follow? This demands retaliation from the U.S. because that's what a helpless country does. When a country like Namibia dares to say no to the United States, especially on something as symbolic as visa reciprocity, Washington rarely takes it lying down. On the surface, official U.S. responses may remain calm, even diplomatic. But beneath that polished exterior, retaliation is often swift, strategic, and surgical. However, Namibia does not care, because that's enough. It was ready for it. One of the most immediate weapons at Washington's disposal is economic aid. Namibia receives millions in U.S.-funded support every year, especially through flagship programs like USAID and PEPFAR, the U.S. President's emergency plan for AIDS relief. These funds aren't just symbolic gestures. They support HIV/AIDS treatment centers, agricultural development, educational scholarships, and local health systems. If the visa standoff escalates, the U.S. could suspend or slash this aid under the familiar excuse of reassessing partnerships. On the surface, it would appear as a recalibration of priorities. But in reality, it would be a punishment. However, Namibia was prepared for this as Trump hinted at ending USAID for countries. But retaliation doesn't always come with headlines. Sometimes it comes in silence. The U.S. could begin quietly downgrading diplomatic relations. Planned meetings could mysteriously vanish from calendars. Embassy staff might be reduced, and Namibian officials applying for U.S. visas might find themselves stuck in bureaucratic quicksand, flagged under vague administrative review categories that never quite get resolved. These tactics don't grab global attention, but they do send a message to African nations. Challenge U.S. supremacy, and your leaders will be made to wait outside the door. Washington could also reach for trade as a tool of coercion. Namibia benefits from preferential access to U.S. markets under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, a policy designed to boost African exports. That lifeline could be severed. If tensions rise, Namibia could be threatened with suspension from AGOA under claims of non-cooperation or obstacles to American business interests. Even more dangerous, the U.S. might not act alone. Washington could quietly lean on its institutional allies, the European Union, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. Loans could be delayed. Infrastructure funding could be stalled without clear reasons. Development deals might vanish. And multinational corporations with American links could be encouraged to rethink investments in Namibia. But here's the twist. Every one of these potential retaliations would only strengthen Namibia's argument. Because if a nation gets punished simply for demanding equal treatment, then what exactly does that say about Western values? That message, obedience over fairness, is now being broadcast loud and clear across Africa. And that's where this could backfire, badly. Africa is not the same continent it was 20 years ago. Today, it is increasingly looking east, toward China, Russia, BRICS, and internal alliances built on sovereignty, not submission. If the U.S. lashes out too harshly, it won't just be Namibia that walks away. Other nations, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya, are watching closely. If they see Namibia survive U.S. retaliation and still stand tall, many may follow suit, demanding visa reciprocity and rewriting the terms of engagement with the West. So, Yes, the United States might retaliate. It might cut aid, delay visas, throttle trade, and turn global institutions into weapons. But in doing so, it may trigger exactly what it fears. A continent no longer willing to beg, bow, or wait for permission. Because if one small country can say, enough, and survive, what happens when an entire continent joins in? And this time, the blowback may not be something Washington is ready to handle. And Namibia knows it. So, will the US retaliate? Maybe. But Africa has seen retaliation before. It has seen coups, it has seen sanctions, and it has seen threats. What it hasn't seen enough of, until now, is unity. And Namibia just lit that fire. What do you think about Namibia's new president's policy of requiring visas from Western countries to enter the country? Isn't it true that all African countries should treat the Western tourists accordingly, so they know how unfairly Africans are treated? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on how Trump will respond when he knows that 500 Americans have been deported by an African country.
You know, this is the thing that I didn't really know was happening between us and countries in Africa. But, you know, obviously this wasn't something that just happened under Trump. This has been going on for decades between our countries. And I'm surprised it's taken so long, but I think if it wasn't for Trump doing what he's doing, I don't think this would have been an issue that would have come up. Let's say if Kamala Harris had won the presidency, I don't think this would have been something that would have been done in Africa. But I think because Trump is really pissing off a lot of people around the world, I think folks are looking at ways to retaliate, or to just look at what's going on between their country and ours, to see if there's something that they can do to kind of add their voice to the choir of people that are unhappy with Trump. But at the same time, this has been something that's been going on for a long time that should have been addressed sooner. Okay, you know, like I said, we put all these restrictions on everybody else in the world coming into the United States, but these other countries have it's unlocked doors basically to their countries, and they're not nearly as strict. And and it shouldn't be that way. I really think that, you know, if we're going to be that way with the rest of the world, then by rights they have the right to do the same. Now, they're saying, well, this could impact trade or something like that. Well, at the same time, this country, Namibia, is opening its doors to other countries in Africa, basically visa-free, you know, be like us in the United States, traveling from state to state. That's what they're trying to set up in Africa, okay? With that, they could start their own trade, and they're inside their own country. That would, you know, be just the same. I mean, like they said, we've had American companies going into Africa, setting up diamond mines, uranium mines, and people setting up safari lodges and shit like that all across the country with, you know, very easy. And it's like, that's got to stop. That has to stop. You know, if we're going to talk about rebuilding Africa to make it self-sufficient, then they should have those diamond mines, they should have those uranium mines, and they should be selling that stuff to the world that needs it. That would make their economy strong again, okay? And I just think that it's really important that, you know, Americans don't look at this as an attack, but as resetting the board to say we're doing this because we want fairness, okay? We want fairness because too many of our people try to get into your country, and a lot of them aren't able to because you put up unrealistic hurdles that people have to jump over in order to acquire a goddamn visa. But yet we don't ask the same from any of you people that come into our country, and you know, you guys can come here easily. That's got to stop. I mean, they deported 500 Americans out of their, was it a few days ago? you know, I'm sure they were nicer about it than the way we've been here. You know, so I feel like this is really, you know, something that should have been dealt with a long time back. Okay, certainly it would have been understood, say, under the Biden administration if they did something then. But like I said, I don't think the spark was really there in their country to do this sort of thing until Trump got into office and pissed off the world. If it hadn't been for him, there probably wouldn't have been any movement to have these visa laws tightened up in their country, probably because of worries that it could impact trade, which it probably will. But I think if they have things in place to compensate for that, they should be able to get through it. You know, the thing that I worry about is that if it's such a big thing, if it's really a situation that's important to our government, okay, and they really don't like this, as the video alludes that it's saying, oh, and quiet, they're really getting pissed off about this, but they're not saying it openly. If that video is correct, then my idea that they might try to do is to go over there and buy a politician and push them into this a seat of power where they will reverse those visa laws. You know, they wouldn't have to do any of these other things that the video suggested that would happen. They could easily just do that, you know, buy off a politician or something over there. And I mean, we've done that before in the Middle East and everything. But that's the thing that I worry about, is that United States would just simply try to corrupt the government of Namibia by getting somebody else seated in power, as it were, to basically reverse this thing. So that way trade will continue normally as it did before, even though it was abnormal and unfair. But I think that's what most likely they'll try to do, with as little rocking of the boat of economically speaking internationally as possible, just to simply bribe somebody over there to run against President Netumbo. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, but to run against her or something like that to undo this thing that she enacted here. So, but I thought this was an important thing to bring up, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I certainly wanted to talk about it because I thought that, this is sort of happening at a time where, we got the rest of the world is basically cutting their ties to the United States. China's out there making new trade partners with the people that we traded with. And it looks like the rest of the world is going to continue on without us, which isn't really surprising. But as far as trading goes, everybody else will continue to do business. It'll just be with a few different people. But the United States won't be in the picture. And really, it never really was. If you think about it for a minute, the United States never really was in the picture because we never produced anything to sell. We gave up all of our production to other countries, and we bought our own stuff that our own companies were making. Okay, only cheaper because the people they were hiring in these other countries were working for pennies on the dollar. So they were just, they were doing this for cheap labor, and we were buying the stuff really cheap, and it was good for us because we had no jobs after they left. But all the other countries were reaping the rewards, and that money wasn't coming back into our country. So that could only last so long. Okay, that kind of reality could only last so long. And if you're not buying, if two countries are not buying equally from each other, there's really no benefit there. You know what I'm saying? Because you had China, which makes everything, and the United States that makes 2 or 3 things. Well, obviously, they're not going to buy as much from us because we've got nothing to offer them. If we had more, they'd probably buy more, right? So how do you make China buy more of our stuff? You will start building more factories to make things. You know, maybe then they'll order more stuff from us, and then, you know, the trade deficit would shrink. But we have that trade deficit there because China is a powerhouse of manufacturing. Christ, they make every goddamn thing there is, even the toys, even the clothes, everything you buy practically, you know, comes from another country, and mostly from China. But, you know, we cannot compete with them because we gave up that fucking power before we entered into NAFTA. We gave up all that shit. We didn't want to be the big factories and, you know, and all that stuff anymore. And like Ross Perot said, you sign NAFTA, what you're going to hear after that is a huge sucking sound of jobs getting pulled right out of this country. He was right. I mean, people laughed about him and stuff, but hey, of all the things that he said, he was right about that. You know, and here we are today. We're living the prediction that he said that would happen, and it did happen. So, think what you want about Ross Perot, but he was right about that. He knew what he was talking about. But, like I said, you know, these things happening right now, and Trump throwing tariffs out there, and everybody says this to me when I talk to them about this. They're saying, why is he putting the cart before the horse? Okay, you don't do well with tariffs unless you are making tons of your own shit. Okay, that's when you put the tariffs up. But you don't put the tariffs up when your country's making zero, making nothing, because who cares about your tariffs? You know, we're not buying from you anyway. So, you know, so you could put a tariff up there as high as you fucking want, but hey, it's not going to change how we've been doing business. Nobody's going to buy from you, but it's going to make it very hard for you to buy from us, which is only going to hurt your country even more in the end, but we're still going to trade with other people. They're not going to have any problems, you know. So how Trump never saw that, it really shows just how stupid he is when it comes to business. That probably explains a lot why he went bankrupt 6 times. Okay, a lot of people could never understand what the fuck he was talking about, and now they can easily sleep now, realizing they didn't miss anything. They didn't miss any hidden nugget that Trump might have put out there that would answer all their woes here as to why or how this is going to come out good for us. They were right the first time. It's not going to work out for us, okay? You were right in your assessment that Trump was ridiculous, that his plan was folly. You guys were right. Trump doesn't know what he's doing, okay? He's no genius. He's none of that shit, okay? He's just a man with money. That's all he is. And that money he didn't earn, that was given to him, and he's been playing around with it ever since. Okay, but he's no big fucking genius. What does somebody say? He's all about the branding, his name, Trump. I mean, he's really all about that. You know, he's not really about anything special. And so he just he's just a guy that today. I mean, yesterday and today. He's been hitting the news circuits telling people all the opposite of what they're seeing. Okay? Honestly, I'm starting to think that this guy has Alzheimer's or age has really crept up on him big time. Okay? Because if he truly believes the shit that he's been telling the press, all right, then he really is. His mental capacity is gone. It's diminished so bad now he shouldn't even be in the office anymore. They ought to really impeach him just for the health reasons alone. He can't be of sound mind and judgment. If he's going around telling people total lies or a total misrepresentation of reality, then obviously he's not living in reality. He's living in his own fantasies, living in his head. Okay? And Joe Biden, the guy that everybody said, oh, he's mentally falling apart, he still sounds more reasonable than Donald Trump does right now. Okay? You're getting the truth from Biden, but with Donald Trump, you're getting fantasy. You're getting this pie in the sky thing, which isn't there. You know, he's misleading people. So who do you think at the end of the day is the one suffering with a mental problem, okay? It's certainly not Biden. Jesus. No, it's the guy that everybody thought would be better than Biden, which we kept saying no. Just because he fucked up in a goddamn debate, you know, doesn't mean that he wasn't capable of doing the job, okay, for president for another 4 years. People seem to think that when you're president, you're the only man on the hill. doing the job. No, you're part of a team of people. You're talking about an administration. That's why we call it the fill in the name administration. It's not just one man. He's the president, yeah, but he's surrounded by advisors and all kinds of other people to help him do the job. Now, since Trump picked all the worst people he could find to be in his administration, this poor guy with his mental problem left himself no safety net to fall into if he should drop the ball here. You've got a guy, Hegseth, 3 months, not even 3 months into his fucking job, he creates the biggest security breach in American history, in recent American history ever. Okay? The biggest. Okay? And this, I'm not exaggerating here. This is, you know, I'm just saying, this is what he did. Within 3 months of his goddamn job, he creates this huge scandal of leaked information on a chat room. Okay? Talking about a plan of attack with other people that were all into it. Okay? And it got leaked out. You know, somebody that was there that shouldn't have been there listening to any of that crap was there. And there's a lot of pissed off people about it, but what are they doing about it? Okay? I haven't heard anything about, oh, he should step down from his job and we need to appoint a new person. I haven't heard that talk yet. What are they trying to do? Wait until everybody forgets about it before they decide to punish this this guy? I mean, he needs to go back to Fox News. That's where he does best, right? He was, what, a weekend journalist or something on there? Go back to Fox. You can lie your head off and do all kinds of shit there. It won't hurt the country. Okay? But clearly you're not qualified to do that job, and that was the number one argument we had about Hegseth about him, was he isn't qualified. He doesn't have the moral character or the fucking wherewithal to be able to do it. He doesn't have no experience in that. Just because he spent a few years in the military does not make him, you know, qualified to run one of the biggest departments in the country. Okay, that's like taking my cat and put her as head of Petco or something. Okay, what the hell does she know about running a goddamn company? Okay, it's same fucking thing. It's just ridiculous how they selected these people, but it's because of Trump's paranoia. He doesn't want anyone being smarter than him, telling him where to do things. Okay? He doesn't want that. He wants to be the only voice on the Hill that talks. And now that he's on the Hill, he's talking, but what he's saying doesn't make sense because his mind is all decayed. Okay? His brain is all decayed. His age is caught up to him now. Okay? He needs to retire. He needs to retire. He needs to get the hell out of the political world. He needs to get out of the business world. He needs to just enjoy the few years he's got left. Now that since he won't be going to prison, he needs to take that time and just get away. Okay? He's too old and too decrepit to be doing what he's doing, okay? Yeah, some people can be older than him and be a much sounder mind. Now, I take off the top of my head, like William Shatner. He's 94 years old, but yet, you know, who could outdo him? The fucking guy's still kick. He's going to outlive everybody. But some people, like Trump, you know, they get into their late 70s, early 80s, you know, hey, everybody ages at different speeds. For him, he ain't going to live to be 100 or 94 years old. He's just going to deteriorate, and he's already deteriorating, you know. That's the reality of it. So whenever people listen to him talk, just keep in mind that what he's saying, he might think is real, but it's not. Okay? Have you ever gone into a nursing home where people have Alzheimer's and they start talking? Are you going to sit there and scream and shout at them when they say something that ain't right? Or are you just going to say, okay, you know, just appease them, you know, and understand that they don't know what they're saying? That's basically what the press is doing, because they're not really trying to question him or anything. They're just tiptoeing around him like he's an eggshell. All right? Because they ain't got no balls to show America that this guy is of an unsound mind and he shouldn't be here. They won't do it. They won't fucking do it. So it's up to us to realize that, hey, what he's telling you there, you know it's not right, and he probably knows it's not right, or maybe he does, whichever. at the very same time, he keeps saying this over and over again. That should make you wonder: is he just lying deliberately, or does he really think these things are true? Because he keeps repeating them all the time, and since nobody tries to correct him, he's just going to believe his own bullshit, right? So, like I said, that to me is a sign of a guy that suffers mentally, and he needs to just say adios. I'm leaving. Whatever. All right, so that's it for today. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So subscribe, comment, share, keep your ears open for health-related issues, and treat each other well out there. You know, be good friends, neighbors, and family. And I'll talk to you guys later. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.